Hey everybody and welcome. So I'm just getting set up here. This is actually my first ever YouTube live stream. So I'm really excited to do this with you. And it's unfortunate that this is happening, of course, right after Chick Corea's death. I'll be honest with you all. I actually really thought that I was going to get a chance to, at least have another conversation with him at some point or get to study with him. And so, right now I'm really kicking myself for not having joined his live seminars that he was doing, his teaching. It's really amazing that, even just a couple of months ago, he was literally playing at the highest possible level. You could see him play. He was online, he was teaching, and he didn't seem to have even the slightest bit of, we couldn't even tell in any way that he wouldn't have been healthy. And so, I'm so grateful for the time that we've got to had, or the time that we've had with Chick in getting to study with him and study from him and all of the amazing materials that he's actually left us with. So yeah, it's interesting too. For me, Chick he's one of those few musicians who I personally have been listening to since I was basically just starting to play jazz. So an album like Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, for me, is something that, I've been listening to that from the time where, there's a time in your life, I think, where you're so young or so early in your musical development that music has a certain magical quality to it, right? And for me, Chick's music has that quality for me. And there aren't a lot of musicians who have that. There aren't a lot of recordings for me that have that. So, Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, that was a really special album to me because I actually, when I was pretty young, I think I was maybe about 13, 14, but I went through a period of time where I was starting to get really serious about jazz, and right in that moment, I developed really bad arm problems, tendonitis problems. I've probably told some of you this before, but, these problems were completely debilitating, actually to the point where I had to sometimes wake up and basically call my mom and dad and say, "Mom and Dad, please can you help me get dressed?" That is how, how little function and control I actually had of my hands at the time. And so there were a few albums that really got me through that year of not being able to play at all. And that was a really discouraging time for me. I really thought I was going to have to quit. I thought piano was not going to be able to even possibly be a career path for me. And in that time, I was listening to a ton of Chick. I was listening to some Brad, some Keith Jarrett, Bill Evans, tons of Oscar Peterson, McCoy Tyner. But even with all of those guys that I was listening to, there were just a couple albums that I really kind of devoured in that time. And Now He Sings, Now He Sobs was probably one of the top three. So it was, again, a year of not being able to physically be at the piano. And all I did was kind of consume some of these albums. Oscar Peterson, Night Train was another one of them. But Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, I have this really special connection with. And I'm sure that all of you also have really important connections with Chick as well. So thank you so much for being here. And, I'll give you all a quick disclaimer here, right? A lot of the time when I do a how to sound like video or how to play like video, there's inevitably someone who I think feels offended by the fact that I would try to teach how to actually play like someone. So this is a disclaimer that I like to say. It's really important to remember that, I myself am not encouraging anyone to literally devote their life to trying to sound exactly like Chick Corea. Although, to be honest, if you really love his playing that much and you want to do that, I personally don't really think there's anything wrong with that. But to me, the whole point of these types of analyses is that we get to look really deeply at Chick's playing. We get to then take a step back and say, are there some techniques that are very common in his playing? Are there tendencies that he had? What were his influences? Can we break this down into a digestible format so that we can actually really help his legacy and his memory live on? To me, by analyzing someone's playing like this and actually really working on essentially, integrating what he's doing into our playing, we can actually basically, we're contributing to keeping Chick alive in all of our playing going forward. And I know that, that's going to happen whether or not I do an analysis video here on YouTube, but hopefully I'll be able to offer you all some insights and also, make Chick proud in the process. And again, I really wish I had more of an opportunity to actually really interact with him and learn from him directly. But, I'm so thankful, again, that we do have so much material from him. So with all of that said, again, this is my first ever live stream. And you know what? I'm excited that I get to do it about Chick Corea, of all people. And so I'm not going to lie, I'm just a little bit nervous here. I'm used to being able to go back and edit my videos. So all of you are going to get to see some of my mistakes along the way. And this is going to be really, really fun because last night, I'm sure, just like everybody else watching this, I dove head into listening to Chick. And I'm probably going to be doing that for a while now, at least for the next month, because honestly, in the process of doing that, I rediscovered so many things about his playing that I absolutely love. So, I threw together, as I usually like to do, I threw together, a fairly detailed outline of some of the things I want to talk to you about his playing. And so we are definitely going to have some methodology here, some different, bite-sized pieces of his playing that we can look at together. And hopefully this is just going to be a lot of fun. So I'll stop my kind of introductory tangent here, and we can actually dive into looking at Chick's playing. So one more quick disclaimer. So for me, this video, I'll probably do more analyses in the future, but this video is very much coming from the Chick Corea, now he sings, now he sobs era, right? So for me, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about here is coming from that era of his playing. Obviously, he was so prolific that we could spend basically years going through and analyzing different parts of his composition, parts of his playing, etc. So today, we are talking very much now he sings, now he sobs era. And by the way, if you ever see me looking up screen, I'm either checking out some of your comments or I'm actually looking at my outline or some of the materials that I put together here. So, all right, with all that said, very excited. Let's actually dive here. Let's dive into the lesson portion of our video. And big thanks to Chick. Hopefully he's actually watching over us here. And hopefully he's gonna enjoy this. We certainly are going to enjoy his playing. So thank you, Chick Corea. Here we go. All right. So to start off, I love to essentially break down a great player's playing into a few different structural pieces. Where are some of their influences coming from? What are some buzzwords that we actually have all heard of that we can actually think about when we're analyzing his playing, right? So for me, a few really important ones come to mind. First of all, pentatonics. I really think that in many ways, especially this era of Chick, he sounds a lot, for lack of a better analogy, he kind of sounds like a McCoy Tyner who's extremely light on his feet. So to me, McCoy Tyner was a very heavy player, right? He played loud. He really dipped down to the deep end of the keys, right? He would really go down into the chords, and a little bit less so in his right hand. But to me, Chick is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. He's almost more like Oscar Peterson in the sense that you feel like his hands are just kind of gliding up and down the keys, right? So yeah, I really think there's a lot of McCoy Tyner influence that we hear, a lot of pentatonic influence, and so that's something that we're definitely going to talk about. But so going into his touch, right? Chick's touch is very pointed, very light, and just a quick shout out, hey to everybody who is here. Thank you so much for joining today. This is a blast, and I'm already loving this. So I'll definitely be doing more live streams for you all in the future. I think it gives all of us a really great opportunity to actually interact here more on YouTube, and also, you get to see more of my process, listen to more of my tangents. I apologize about that, but hey, it's all part of it, right? So anyway, here, so yeah, let's get back to Chick's touch here. So it feels really like, hearing him play, he is just kind of almost playing notes staccato sometimes, right? And if you actually watch him, it's really amazing seeing just how easy it is for him, how light on his feet, for lack of a better phrase here, how light on his feet he is. So again, that pointed touch for me is definitely a part of his playing, and you can really hear that. It's like he'll actually hammer out some pentatonics, right? But then somehow he manages to do it in this way that sounds really light. And I think that part of what he's doing is, instead of going way down into the note here, right, and really holding out the chords with sustain, putting his fingers all the way through, he's actually going to do it more like this. He's using dynamics by hitting the notes quickly, right? And for anybody who's wondering, this app in the top left, this is Chordy, and I cut off their, their symbol here just for keeping the stream clean. But definitely shout out to Chordy; it's a great app. So Chick is gonna, he's gonna hit it really, really quick, and we're gonna talk more about pentatonics and getting these pentatonic voicings as well. So lightness, though. Lightness of touch, for me, that is a key element of Chick's playing. So with that said, we've talked about how pentatonics are clearly an influence on Chick. He does a lot of pentatonic lines. He uses a lot of pentatonic scales. And actually, to steal a phrase from my buddy Chad LB, he does pentatonic shifting, which is, more or less, he shifts from one pentatonic scale to the next pentatonic scale. So if he's doing, let's say we're doing F dominant pentatonic. So he might actually go a half step above, right? And, that's something that McCoy would do as well. So there's definitely a lot of McCoy influence here in this Now He Sings, Now He Sobs record and just era of Chick. But with that said, Chick definitely brings in a whole other set of elements that someone like McCoy really stays away from. And for me, that is actually blending this pentatonic vocabulary with something that's kind of the polar opposite, which is chromaticism. So for me, Chick, especially again in this era, uses for his dominant chords a lot of chromaticism and actually diminished harmony, diminished licks, right? So if we're on F7, there's a really good chance he's actually going to make it more of an F7, sharp 9, sharp 5 kind of sound, right? And he might actually do, diminished stuff here. So diminished meaning just licks that move up in minor thirds, right? For anyone who, doesn't know, with the diminished scale really breaks everything up perfectly. It breaks the octave into even parts. So one minor third, another minor third, another minor third, and a fourth minor third. And with these different minor thirds, we actually get a full octave broken up into 4 equal pieces. So that allows us to do these patternistic licks that work really well, right? Right? And so those are really cool. We can move our voicings up like this. And what I'm doing there is I'm taking this sound here. So in the right hand, C, F sharp, and B. And then I'm literally just moving that down in minor thirds. Right? And so this creates a really interesting kind of altered sound over F, well, in this case F, but over our dominant chord. Right? And Chick loved this sound. He used this sound a lot in his playing. If you listen to like Matrix, for example, we get a lot of that. And so Chick, he had this amazing way then of taking the pentatonic piece of his playing and combining it with a very chromatic piece of his playing. And so he would take these kind of altered chromatic scale runs or diminished scale runs and combine them with pentatonics, right? So when I talked about how to sound like Oscar Peterson, I kind of broke him down into, his playing down into 3 main elements, which were bebop, blues, and arpeggiation. And, his arpeggios were also very much, generally speaking, fairly diatonic. And so what we would do, we could work on an arpeggio. combine it with some bebop and some blues. Right? And of course, it's a very basic way of talking about it, but I think it's a really fun way of looking at it. It's a really fun way of, breaking down Oscar's playing into a bite-sized piece that we can actually work on. It's so easy to say, let's jump in, let's look at a full transcription here, pick apart every single thing that Oscar ever did. But what I'm trying to do here is actually take a step back, look at the greater picture. Are there some overarching themes here in the playing of someone like Oscar or Chick that we can actually incorporate into our own playing? So that's what we're trying to do here, at least here to start out. So for me, Chick might actually do pentatonics, and that would include pentatonic improvisation. One of my favorite licks actually from Matrix is it's like something like this. So this is totally an arpeggiated run, right? We get this fourth-based run here. All really arpeggiating this F kind of sus chord here. You can throw the C in, or you could... And then he does, he arpeggiates a C minor 7. And then he suddenly gets really chromatic. And then here we're going to arpeggiate an A minor, right? Cool. I love that. Let's look at that. Whether you're over G minor or G13 here, right? He's doing this D major over it. He's kind of delaying the resolution of the harmony. And then there's this kind of sound again. You get this flat 9. There we land on the flat 7 and go down, kind of an altered sound. So just in that lick alone, we actually get, and that's like a full chorus of a blues actually. It's, I guess you could say several licks, but it's kind of one passage. And just in that passage alone, we really do see him do a bunch of pentatonics and then actually do a bunch of chromaticism too. And so that's really interesting, but we can see those combinations happening literally right there, right? That's a really, really, really fun thing to think about. So let's talk here. Let's talk about something that I like to call dissonance formulas. So this is a concept that I actually introduced very recently. And to be fair, it's certainly not a concept I invented. I just decided to give it this name, dissonance formula, because for me, it's taking something that's been talked about a lot, especially theoretically, and giving it a name that's very digestible. It's a format in which we can think about it easily and hopefully digest it easily, right? And so what a dissonance formula is quite literally just a formula for playing non-diatonically, right? So that could be for a chord, or it could be also it could be a right hand lick or a melody, right? So one really, really simple example of a dissonance formula, in my opinion, would be something like this. We could call it major a half step below, right? So if we're doing like F dominant, we could play major a half step below over the dominant, right? So we're playing E. And that would be a little dissonance formula there, right? And so to me, every player has their own dissonance formulas that they often refer back to, right? And I'll give you a little sneak preview here. One that someone like Brad Meldau I've heard do, just as one example of very, very many that he uses, would be like, for example, over a 5 chord, you would actually throw in the minor 9 a whole step below. So in a 2-5-1, F minor 11 to B flat 13 to E flat major here, right? We would actually do F minor and then A flat minor 9 over B flat. And that's a pretty simple one, right? It's pretty simple, but it's a really pretty sound. So for me, everybody has their dissonances that they go to. And why is that? Well, because certain dissonances really get in our ears, right? If you practice one of these enough, it's going to become a part of your own personal language. So for me, one great thing we can do, instead of trying to say, take all of Chick's licks, what we can do is do an analysis of what are some of the dissonance formulas that he commonly uses. What is his method of stepping outside of the changes, stepping outside of the key, right? And with someone like Chick, this is really, really fun to analyze. So for me, if I could think of one word that I was going to use to describe Chick's playing, it would actually probably be the word elegant. The way he does everything, not only is it clean and not only is his touch pointed, but there's a certain grace and elegance about the way he does everything. And that includes the way he steps in and outside. It's almost, it's really not something that's like advertised by his line. It's something that he just does seamlessly, and it just goes in and out, and it's no problem. So let's just look at a couple dissonance formulas that I actually wrote down here. Again, things that I took from Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. First of all, on Matrix, actually, this is a really fun one. So something like that. He does something along those lines, but so basically what he's doing is he's basically playing the tritone over F, right? So he's playing B major over F7. Something like that. I don't want to say it's the exact lick because I don't remember the lick perfectly. But again, here now I'm talking about the formula less than the lick, because you know what? You don't need to play Chick's exact lick. If you kind of are able to get this formula, put it into your ear, now you can actually integrate this sound into your playing. Okay, so. Right, so this is a really, really cool thing that we can do here. All right, so that's a really interesting sound. Basically, tritone over the dominant, right? And again, tritone major, right? So we're doing B major over F7. Now, there's a really interesting passage in Matrix that I love, actually, and it falls on the 4 chord. So B flat, right? Matrix, during the solo section, it's more or less an F blues, right? And so during the solo section on the 4 chord, Chick does this passage where he goes, and again, I'm not playing the exact lick here, but he shifts down to A, right? So now we're doing actually a half step below major. And then he, on the, 2-5 to the 5, so, A minor to D7, that's where the A minor to D7 would go to bring us to the third phrase of the blues. He actually does this kind of E flat minor sound. Right, and then he resolves us back in, okay? But so if we're actually looking at, I think that's how the lick starts. So again, we're doing on the 4 chord, shifting down to the A, right? And we're calling it shifting because it's a very seamless shift. It's chromatic. Maybe resolve for a sec. And now we go to E flat minor. And then maybe now we resolve finally to the G. And so these are like these really elegant ways that Chick will just kind of shift in and out of the actual diatonic harmony and do these really interesting little dissonances that sound so elegant and so interesting to the ear. Let's see, what else have we got on our list here? Well, another thing he'll do, right, is actually just some really beautiful pentatonic arpeggiation. So one thing that I love actually, and by the way, if you want to check out that line that I was just demonstrating from Matrix, I have written down here actually, it's at the 1 minute and 2 second mark, somewhere around there on Matrix from Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. So you'll hear those dissonance formulas of the A over B flat going down to like the kind of G flat major and or E flat minor sound over the 5 to 4, and you'll hear the resolution there too. Let's move on to another one here. So over E major on window. A lot of pentatonic sounds, right? There's this beautiful E major that is held out. And for his improvising, there's this one little spot where he does this awesome thing. It's like a I love that. This kind of thing. Right? So nice. So what we're doing here is, right, really what's happening here is more of like F sharp major pentatonic over E, right? Which of course gives us the sharp 11, right? That's kind of the sound we're getting here. And so Chick does this kind of thing. He does starting on the 3, then to that sharp 11. And I'm doing for fingers 1, 2, 3, 4. Jumping up to the next octave. And then we can switch down to a slightly different arpeggio. So this one's starting on G sharp. Then we can switch down to C sharp. All right, you probably don't want to do it that much, but I was just getting a little carried away there, because it's actually a lot easier than it looks, and it just sounds so pretty. And it's so interesting, the way it sounds, like the way he's able to do it so gracefully. It almost sounds like a texture, almost more than an actual line or arpeggio, right? Thank you, Doc Theopolis. Appreciate that. Definitely working on it. So that's just a beautiful thing, right? So when you combine those pentatonics, the pentatonic lines, and you then combine those with chromatic lines, especially on dominant chords, altered sounds, altered lines, you get some really interesting sounds. And that brings me to one other thing. Let's talk about his diminished uses a little bit here. So he definitely loves those diminished licks, and those work so well, again, over the altered dominant chords, or even like a half diminished chord. So check this out. He does this one. There's this one spot where he does this. It's like this kind of this A half diminished sound, and he does. All right, something like that, yeah. So it's really actually, it sounds awesome, but it's pretty simple. So here's what we're doing. We're essentially starting with this A half diminished sound. And I'm starting with this F sharp major triad in the right hand in second inversion. Then we go down to an E major triad in second inversion. And now we're going to arpeggiate that and just move it up in minor thirds. And that's it, right? And thank you all so much for the comments. Yeah, I'm doing my best to honor Chick here. I think, as I said, earlier in the stream, I think one of the best things we can do to honor him is actually study his playing in this way, because the more we do it, the more his playing actually ends up being a part of all of us and all of our playing going forward, right? So for me, I think this is so much fun for me. I mean, Chick is incredible. I definitely haven't done enough analysis of him in general in my life, I feel like. So thanks to all of you for giving me the opportunity to actually work on this stuff so that I can teach it here on my channel. And again, thanks to all of you who are here hanging out and watching. Really appreciate it. So cool. So let's just look at this one more time. Right? And we could keep going up here with this sound. We could go back down, and literally, as interesting as that might sound, all it is these major triads in second inversion going up and down. Right? So that's a really fun sound there. Now, again, with that said, part of the beauty here is, I think, taking all of this information, taking these different nuggets, right? Taking the nugget of pentatonic lines, so open fourth bass lines, shifting to some other keys. And if you want to learn a bit more about pentatonic shifting, as Chad LB calls it, check out Chad LB because he's got some great videos on that stuff. And so, again, shifting being the concept of just kind of seamlessly moving from one pentatonic scale, maybe up a step or down a step, and using that as a means to an end to get from one tonality to another tonality, right? It sounds complicated, but in some ways it's simple if you just take the time to have fun with it and mess around with it. And so, okay, so we've got, unfortunately, I'm not editing this live, so normally I would just put this on screen, but we've got pentatonics and shifting, in and out of different keys with those pentatonics. So fourth-based pentatonic improvised lines. Then we have got chromaticism. So he loves his little chromatic connections for his lines to, like any bebop player, even connect between chord tones in many cases. Then on top of that, diminished harmony. So literally sometimes the diminished scale, sometimes this, diminished combination over an altered chord, or even using some altered tonality in the right hand as well. And he does a lot of these, the way he does it sounds much better than that. But these super chromatic little runs that kind of bring you around these different, dissonant extensions like flat nines and sharp nines, and it's really interesting hearing him do that. So I think we've had a great talk here now about his right hand, right? But let's talk a little bit about his voicings. And so this is really going to bring us a lot back to McCoy here, because what we really need to work on if we want to get our voicings going in the style, especially that he does, in this Now He Sings, He Sobs era, or you get what I'm saying. In the Now He Sings, Now He Sobs era. Thank you. See, this is the thing with live. You get to hear me stumble on my words, and you get to hear all my tangents and my rants. So this is good stuff. I love nerding out with you all live here. So just looking back at my notes, let's go back into the voicings portion here. So I think for me, there's actually a really, really interesting exercise that we should be talking about. And that is going to be dominant pentatonic voicings. Okay? So tell me if this sounds familiar at all in the way Chick comps. I'm a little rusty. So this is really, really important. And what we're actually doing here is we're starting with this D, as Cordy's calling here, a D6, 9 sharp 11, right? So D, F sharp, B, E, and G sharp. But really what we're basing this on is the E dominant pentatonic scale. So in E, F sharp, G sharp, B, D, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to shift each note here into the next note of that scale. And And I might be messing this up a tiny bit here. I might have heard something there. Maybe that sounded right. So if we do that all over D, right? Get this beautiful pentatonic sound. And for me, this is something that Chick uses a lot. So if you want to really be able to take this kind of sound and integrate this into your comping, obviously listening to both McCoy and Chick, really interesting. Chick, for me, he took it one step further, which is, what we all should do, right? We should analyze Chick's playing, see if we can't take this stuff one step further. But these pentatonics are really, really important. And now that's one way of practicing them, right? Going up a dominant pentatonic scale. So that's one way of doing it. But we could also do this with a minor pentatonic scale. So let's actually, this is easier to demonstrate in F sharp. So let's shift to F sharp, because now we can just use the black notes here. And this also works as E flat minor. So our voicing here is E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and B flat, right? So what we can actually do here, I'm gonna try to look at the camera more often. We'll see if I can pull it off. I'm actually looking at chordy a lot of the time. So what we can do here is now we're moving up the E flat minor pentatonic scale. Right? That's our scale right there. So here we go. And if we suddenly throw that over E, whoop. Just shifted times. We can get some of these really, really nice, very Chick-ish sounds, right? Or McCoy-ish sounds. It's really coming from the both of them. And a lot of what makes it, oh, look at that. I thought, my mom's on my do not disturb. She can call me even when it's on do not disturb. So if your mom ever calls you while you're on do not disturb, make sure that she can still get through on your phone. That's a very, very important lesson. If I could give you one lesson today, make sure that your mom can always call. And of course, I'll call her right back after this live stream. Before we do that, though, I think I'm going to just make sure my phone is turned off so that no more things come through here. So if y'all just give me 1 second. Awesome. Yeah, I'm loving this the live stream setup, despite it being a little bit, less controlled. It's really fun because we're basically all just hanging out and having a great talk about Chick. And that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun for me. And I, although I'm not responding to all of your comments here, just so you know, I am checking them out. I am reading them, and I really appreciate all of them, and I really appreciate all of you being here. So, more or less here, I've actually gone through a lot of my outline in terms of what I wanted to really talk to you all about here in terms of Chick's playing. So if we were going to, take a look at this again, let's just kind of put this all together here. So kind of these building blocks of Chick's playing on the harmonic level, having really good ability with pentatonic voicings, being able to shift maybe from one pentatonic voicing sound to another tonality, right? So the same way we shift with a pentatonic line, we want to shift for the voicings as well. And additionally to that, we also are going to have then in the right hand, we're going to have pentatonic lines. We're going to have chromaticism, and combining that all with diminished vocabulary. Okay, and so I would really encourage all of you to actually take a listen to Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, because I think it's a really obviously it goes without saying, it's an absolutely wonderful, brilliant album. But hopefully now you'll actually be able to listen and hear some of what we were talking about today. And now you'll have some ways of actually working on that stuff. And also here, just a quick aside, to anybody who's actually interested in working with me directly, there may be some really awesome ways for us to work together. So if that's something you'd be interested in, there actually is a link, not in the description to this because I haven't edited that all yet, but in some of my videos, you'll find a link that you can actually click, and it'll have you fill out a quick form, and we can actually just have a quick chat, jump on a quick call, and see if working together would be a good fit. So if anybody's interested in that, definitely feel free to check that out. I would love to have a chat with you. So going forward from here, how do we actually integrate this stuff? Well, what I would recommend is actually starting really simple and working on just one concept at a time. So for me, one thing that's often left out is the idea of integration, right? I can give you this great lesson. Well, I don't want to say it's great. That's up to you to decide. But I can give you all of these different ideas and concepts here in the lesson, right? And you can take them and run with them, but you need to take the time to now mess with these and integrate them into your playing. So some things I would recommend doing would be, first of all, concentrating on one concept at a time. So if you're going to work on pentatonics, start with like E major. See if you can work on this and work on building lines. See if you can shift out a little bit. Right? Just work on that to start. Okay? Then work on some diminished stuff. And then what you can do is actually take those things and put them together, right? So maybe you're going from E major to C altered. So maybe what we can do is say, okay, we're going to do pentatonics on the E major, and then we're going to go into some diminished lines in harmony on the C altered. And I'm sure you could probably do it better than that, but and work on actually combining one thing with the other. See if you can seamlessly move from one concept to the next. And what's going to happen is you're going to see that you're actually going to start feeling a blend of these concepts. It's not going to be as simple as, just basically, oh, now I'm doing pentatonics and now I'm doing diminished. You're going to start to be able to form the lines in your mind so that it all feels like one cohesive whole. So again, these are building blocks. These are kind of outside perspectives on the grander schemes of things, on the grander scheme of things, of, what does Chick's playing sound like? What is he doing? What maybe did he himself even work on? What were some of his influences? How can we actually go and practice this stuff? So these are all really, really important things to talk about, and really important things to think about. And so, just to end things up here before we wrap up, I just want to say again, if Chick Corea is out there somewhere listening, thank you to Chick for all of the wonderful music. Thank you. And thank you so much to all of you who are interested not only in, obviously probably more interested in learning about Chick than my lessons here, but thank you for coming and joining me here to hang out and talk about Chick, talk about his playing, and really get into the nitty-gritty here about how he's doing what he does. And I think, Chick, I'm sure, already was really proud, but would be really proud to know that all of you are going to go out and practice some of this stuff and actually integrate it into your playing. And I'm sure that he is going to be a huge influence to all of us going forward. I myself am going to be diving into some of his albums. So actually, for everyone who's listening, what I would say is if you could comment in the comments, what are the 1 to 3 albums that you are just going to devour over the next couple weeks? I would love to know, because actually I feel like I've spent so much time on Now He Sings, Now He Sobs that I would actually love to get some other recommendations and see what some of your recommendations are going to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this a session. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much again for joining me. And once this is uploaded, please dive into the comments. Let's have some more conversation about which Chick albums we're gonna actually be talking about and listening to going forward. Thanks so much, everybody. and I will see you soon with some more live streams because this is a lot of fun. So thanks a lot for being here, and we will all talk soon.